Hey y'all, I'm Angela Barrett, and this is Talking South Carolina. Now y'all take a load off and listen, because no matter if you just moved here, thinking about moving here, been here your whole life, or you just plain nosy, bless your heart, I'll have something for you. Like, who's living in High Cotton? Who's madder than a wet hen? Places to go if you got a hankering for fried chicken, and where you can go to get drunk as Cooter Brown. We'll talk pig pickings, cow tipping, tillions, hay rides, who's buttering whose biscuits, what's a case quarter, and lots of other stuff. So stay a while. Y'all, it's gotta be a hoot.
This episode of the Talking South Carolina podcast has been brought to you in part by HomeMattersSC.com, professional real estate services and marketing in the Midlands of South Carolina for people who want more. And now she's a realtor by day and a podcaster by night. Here's your host of the Talking South Carolina podcast, Angela Barrett.
Professor, how are you?
I'm doing well, and I hope you are. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah, it has been a long, long time.
Yeah, it has. I can tell you how much it's been, but I don't want you to be sharing in numbers here.
No, I'm going to share them. I was going to say we met in 1986.
No, 85.
Well, it could have been 85.
19th, 1985.
Could have been. You're probably correct.
My first day on WDSC-FM.
Oh, really? The 93, as we called it, right?
Prior to that, before the ownership change in 86, we just called it WDSC.
WDSC, gotcha.
Yeah.
That was a fun time.
It was.
We gave away an IROC Z that year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, down at the beach, from all the way from Dillon to the beach, I guess, or...
Mm-hmm.
However that worked, but that was fun. It was a lot of fun to drive too.
I know. I remember Friday nights, where the studio was located there on 501.
Right.
And I would always come on and say, will the last person leaving North Carolina please turn off the lights?
Yeah, right. That's right. That's right. And speaking of old times, don't you wish we could go to Johnny Dollar's just one more time?
Yes, I do.
That was a fun place, wasn't it?
The Gator, the Razzle Dazzle.
Yeah. Yes, we did. For it to be such a small town, we certainly had the nightlife.
I know.
All right, now, Harold, you've been working in broadcasting since you were 16, I understand.
1968.
So how many years is that total?
We're in year number 57 right now.
So, how did it happen at 16 that you went into broadcasting?
I just was always interested in it. I think it probably started. I had a couple of sources. Well, my dad loved radio. And anytime I'd be out with him, we always had to be something on the radio. Back when car radios had to warm up before they would start playing. Too.
Right.
Yeah. And then there were those times when... the TV would start acting funny, and you had to call the local repair company. So that was another inspiration to maybe pursue the electronics end of it.
Right.
So
now, you were in North Carolina at 16, and I understand it was an AM radio at that point.
It was in Kannapolis, North Carolina, not far from home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then what were you doing at 16?
Oh, just working weekends.
On the air.
On the air.
Nice. Now, since then, you have been in broadcasting of all kinds, radio, television, motion picture. So fill me in from 16 to now. Where have you been?
Okay. Well, we were at one station in Kannapolis, and then, moved over to the other one. Which was in the downtown area, and I did afternoons. I'm going to high school and driving a school bus in the morning and being afternoon DJ.
Yes.
And then doing our best to try to graduate. And in 1970, I did, and went on off to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. and majored in radio, television, motion pictures. And then, got that done. I'd worked campus radio. We had a little station that went out to all the dormitories.
Now, what was your DJ name then?
Well, I think it was just Harold at that point.
I gotcha.
What happened when I went to WFMO in Fairmont, North Carolina, if you remember them?
I do.
Okay, well, the boss said that I wasn't going to be Harold anymore because it just didn't sound top 40 enough. So he said I was Dave. And, well, he signed the check. So, I didn't have much room to dispute it, even though Mama was opposed.
Sure. Right.
That hung on for a while.
Yeah.
And
so I interrupted you. You were DJ at college. Now keep going because I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. We were almost in the same progression anyway.
Oh,
so
good.
After finishing Chapel Hill, I go out and start looking for a first full-time job, which was in that part of North Carolina I had never seen or heard much about, and that was Robeson County. Of course, I didn't pronounce it correctly when I first got there because one on the other side of North Carolina thought it was Robeson County, and we found out that was incorrect. So spent a lot of good years there, and I got to work with some good radio people, and found out about this place called the Coachman and Four Club in Bennettsville, South Carolina, where the big-time legends of soul would come to play. And we did a lot of commercials for them and got to meet a lot of stars. It was almost like, a small-town version of radio.
Sure, yeah. And that was in Bennettsville, yeah.
Yeah, which was just a short drive over from where we are, but it seems like when they would have somebody big at the Coachman, like maybe Jerry Butler or Billy Scott and Georgia Prophets, Archie Bell, I mean, we could just about quadruple the population of Bennettsville in one night.
Yeah, sure. That's funny.
And, okay, after the time in Fairmont, I got offered a chance to go a little further west. So I worked around Hickory and Lenore and Morganton, North Carolina for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was also a good experience, just to see another market. I think the goal was eventually to see if we could get something like, Charlotte, Winston-Salem, Raleigh, where, all the bigger operations were. But my focus got changed from on-air to engineering. And in 1978, I found my first engineering job at a station in Sylva, North Carolina, which was just a few miles from Western Carolina University in Cullowhee. And so I stayed there for a year or so and building up some technical experience. And eventually, in I think it was 1992, I crossed over from radio into television. And that was the engineering and master control side. They didn't dare, well, occasionally they would put me on camera, but they usually I did that. That was not the best course of action. So, I told them, I said, I'll look after y'all. You be good and be on camera. I'll just stay back here and be sure everything's working right.
Yeah, sometimes it is easier back there behind the scenes.
Well, now, my first television was at WPDE TV in Florence, Channel 15. You remember them?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. And I stayed there for about 3 years and eventually wound up at a place where I thought I'd always loved to work, and that was WRAL TV in Raleigh. And
oh, yeah.
Big time. I mean, they
absolutely
knew how to do it right and still do. And the only reason I left was because I got talked into returning to my alma mater, which was the University of North Carolina Center for Public Television, and had the chance to assist in their digital conversion when television was going from analog to a new transmission standard. And that was good experience. And that led 2005 to becoming part of the startup team for Discovery Television's new facility in Sterling, Virginia, where they originated all their channels. And that at the time was about 14 of them. You had Discovery, you had TLC, you had Animal Planet, BBC America. God, I'm trying to remember all of them now. But
there was a lot.
We had like control room segmented to where we would probably monitor 3 channels at a time. And it was big time stuff.
Yeah.
So then it got to be 2008, and both Marilyn and I had decided it was time to come back to North Carolina because you think about your parents' health, and my mom wasn't doing all that well at the time. Well, we knew she was getting up there in years, so
sure,
we just come on back. And I spent about 10 years in Charlotte, and that was initially they had a facility that was going to be the control point for Channel 3, WBTV, then NBC 12 in Richmond, Virginia, and their new station, WMBF Myrtle Beach. So we were part of the management staff for that for about 4 years until they decided to return the other channels to their own individual bases, and it just became WBTV Charlotte. So that's where I finished in 2018.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
I was going to say when it came time to retire, we came down here to Horry County. And so then we fired up the radio again.
I was going to say, you did not retire.
No. Probably still
I heard you on the beach waves.
Well, I spent 4 years on 94.9 The Surf, which is the headquarters for beach music down here. Located in the Ocean Drive Beach and Golf Resorts. Best view out the control room window I ever had. And that's fun. And
right.
Then, the way it is in radio and television, people take different directions, and I had a chance to come over here to Beach Waves, independent, internet-based thing, and we just do it from here in the room every Thursday.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool show too. So now, out of all of those years in broadcasting, what would be? Well, let's break it down. What would be the favorite job, and then what would have been the favorite place? Because that doesn't necessarily would be the same. So what would be the favorite job, the part you played?
Oh, that is so tough. I think as far as management, it would have probably been WJRI in Lenore, North Carolina, because their GM came to be like an older, wiser brother to me, Donnie Goodell. May he rest in peace. We lost him in 2018 to pancreatic cancer, and I'll tell you, he was laid to rest in Chesterfield County in a Gamecock casket, just the way he wished.
I love it. It.
I mean, he was spurs and feathers for the end.
Right. I love it. Yeah. What about your favorite, I guess, place? And that may be the same.
Place. Well, Lenore is definitely one of them, but I will tell you, there was, and you will probably agree here, there was nothing like that old Radio Shack on Highway 501 between Dillon and Latta. 1,000 watt or 100,000 watt FM broadcast transmitter and 2 incoming Watts lines for requests.
I remember well.
Yeah.
It was a pretty cool place. It was.
or South Carolina, 1-800-327-9393. And if you're in North Carolina, 1-800-323.
Oh, I'd forgotten about the two numbers. That's funny. I did forget about that.
You met the most interesting people on the telephone.
True. Now let's talk about, because you've been doing this a long time, let's talk about the changes, like the physical changes of how you got music for people to hear on the radio, just that alone, from the time you started to now.
We started out with turntables, some older than others. Yeah. And then I think we migrated around 86, 87 to compact disc. Some of the compact disc players for radio were not always reliable. And, we had a little issue with those, but they got better. And then now, we went from the compact disc to the digital audio tape. And somewhere along the way, it all wound up on a hard drive.
Right.
That's where a lot of it stays to this day.
Right.
And also this dilapidated cardboard box, I still have 5s.
Carrying around. Now, what do you think has changed other than just how you get the music on, in the air? So that we can listen. What else have you seen?
We got a lot of different platforms going on now, because used to be it was just AM or FM. Now you have web-based. That has also evolved into podcasting. Let's see, what else do we have up ahead? And for television, we went from 4x3 analog mono audio to 16:9 1080 progressive scan high definition television. And
right.
We really probably have no idea what's coming next.
Sure.
But yeah.
And how was it trying to keep up with the new technology as things came along?
Well, fortunately for me, I was lucky enough when I got to Raleigh and WRAL, they were totally committed to high definition and also to computer technology. And that was it was a good learning base to be part of an engineering staff and a management that was committed to it. So I felt like that was an education in itself.
Yeah. That's good, because I imagine some of that could not have been easy, floundering around by yourself, trying to learn all that.
Not always, because when you go from standard analog television to what we see today, it was just, like going from one world to another.
Yeah. And I mean, most of the, a lot of that people are not going to understand, but it would be the same as, when I used to be the TV remote.
Right.
Before this came along.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Angela, turn the TV.
Then there were those calls that I used to get from back home, and Mama says, "Harold, can you explain this TV to me?"
Like the telephones now.
He changed channel, and one of the engineers there in Raleigh said, "How can you be so patient?" I said, "Well, you got to have a mama."
That's right. I think I walk into Dad's every time, and he's like, "I don't know what I did." I'm like, "Well, you keep mashing buttons." How's that for a Dylan word? Mashing buttons everywhere. Stop.
I still think one of the funniest illustrations of it was on an episode of South Park where somebody had a brand new TV and they pushed the wrong button and it turned into a transformer. What's those?
Yeah. I'll have to admit now, when it comes to some of the technology today, I'm like, I'd just rather not.
Yeah. I totally understand it.
Right. So, tell me what the North Carolina Broadcasting History Museum is, and then tell me some of your parts that you had to do with that.
Okay. I'll be happy to. Well, a friend of mine approached me on Facebook and said, "You've been at this for so long. Don't you think you need to start writing some stuff down?" And
Book.
yeah, I thought about that. I said, well, I know people who can read books, and some have also written them. But, I got to thinking, I said, well, I think everybody else's stories would be a whole lot more interesting than mine. So I started the North Carolina Broadcast History Group on Facebook and just invited everyone that I knew and had them invite their friends, because, in the radio and TV business, somebody and somebody else knows somebody. And then the chain starts developing, and then before you know it, you've got a group with something like 2,000 people, and many of them have been broadcast heroes of mine since day one.
Right.
Both in radio and television. And what we started doing, I just told everybody, I said, go out and find some things that we can archive and remember. Just like the print ads, trying to also assemble any air checks we could find of old radio shows. And, it's just a matter of trying to keep alive what, made us want to be in this business.
Yeah. And so the museum is, in fact, open today.
Well, the Facebook group is, but now the North Carolina Broadcast History Museum, this is still under development.
I gotcha.
Yeah, we're still looking, and I'm very honored to have been asked to be on the board of trustees for this, because, I've looked around at some of the guys, and the one young lady who is, probably the CEO of one of the premier broadcasting groups that her father established many years ago, and that is Beasley Broadcast. This is Caroline Beasley. She's one of the members of our board of trustees, and along with several others. But, I've been to many meetings, and I'm thinking, I said, how did I get in here? I said, I was again the back door.
Well,
but, they told me, they said, no, you're our guy who has, assembled all this stuff and given us something to build on. I said, well, that's a badge of honor right there, because we're thinking that it is important enough to try to preserve it. And I have to say that we've got some people in South Carolina doing the same thing too. There is a group, they called it SLOBs, which is an acronym for Some Legendary Old Broadcaster. And they work out of Columbia. And it's right about at this point that I want to recognize and remember a couple of members of that group that we've lost recently. One of them being Woody Wyndham, who for years radio in Columbia, South Carolina, had a beach club in downtown Columbia, and, hung out with his brother Leo, and they used to do radio together. And then I know that a lot of hearts are broken, mine included, because, there'll never be another Joe Penner.
Well, I know. Mr. Knows It. That's right.
Well, he was in our North Carolina group, too, because, he's from New Bern originally, and also attended the University of North Carolina. He was there far enough back to have went to college with Charles Kuralt and a couple of others, one of them being a big star on NPR, whose name, Carl Castle, used to do All Things Considered, I believe. And there was all kinds of the old school of broadcasting. And Joe took it to the military. And, he was stationed at Fort Jackson, And that's how Mr. Nosett came to be in Columbia.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Interesting.
I think he also spent a little time in Jacksonville, Florida, where he met his wife, Peggy. And they spent a lot of years together. Now, they're going to have a memorial service for Joe somewhere in Columbia, I think, on November 14th. I suggest if you're going, you better be there early because
Right.
the standing room only. I hope
Absolutely.
they have a big enough venue for
I'm sure there is one.
I don't know if there is either, but I'll tell you, yeah, I guess I've always had a special affection for WIS-TV because I think in 1972, sort of had a young lady of interest in Columbia who worked with Brittle and Dillon, or Lakeview, I think. And I'd go to Columbia and they'd have on WIS and I'd hear this voice doing the state IDs. His name was Dave Rogers. But I'll tell you what, it was just almost like you had to stand there and listen.
Right. One of those that kind of just sucked right in.
Yeah. Had that kind of presence. And ever since then, I said, this has got to be one special place to work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still a big network here for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And
Now, let me ask you, we just went through Hurricane Helene and are still dealing with the devastating aftermath, especially up in the North Carolina, mountains area. Have you ever had to, I guess, be cover or announce either in your DJ or any of the broadcasting roles? Have you ever had to be the one who broke the news or had to cover those kinds of things in a crisis situation or been a part of that in any way?
Well, I returned to our old radio home in Dillon in 1989, and that was the place where we were waiting for Hugo to come in.
Yes.
Oh, what a fun night that was. And there was a whole lot of broadcasting going on because we lost power and we couldn't fire the generator up.
Oh, no.
Well, it was doomed from the start. And that one I remember well, but another one was Hurricane Fran that came ashore 1996 at Wilmington and then eventually got to the Raleigh area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got, there at WRAL, we're checking to see if there's water in the basement, and we're doing a live shot from the breezeway that runs between the main building and the administration building there, Capitol Broadcasting. And, it's almost like, we're having to anchor the people who are out there trying to report because the wind was so heavy. Right.
Like a Jim Cantori, flapping around in the rain.
And I'm in master control that night, and so we're getting all kinds of calls. One of them was, we were a CBS affiliate then, so we got something coming back from one of the engineers in New York. Can you tell us what's going on down there? I said, well, there's a hurricane on top of us right now, if you really want to know. And, when you're doing breaking news and live team coverage, it's always a good time.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a whole different, ball game. I mean, the energy level, for one, has to be massive when you're having to cover stuff like that. Yeah.
It really is. And the most fun part of it is the stuff you're not seeing and hearing, because you got to have a crew and, give it about 6 hours of doing this thing straight. And so, we love what we do, but we sort of had enough of it.
Right. So, right. So we've talked about like all the technical changes for better or for worse that come along. And now we have social media. What are your thoughts on social media?
Well, before we proceed into the world of social media here, I want to illustrate one other change that you have in broadcasting that I think is, an important consideration today. It used to be most of your radio stations were locally owned and operated, and as were the TV stations. But now you have these multi-conglomerate groups who own countless numbers of radio stations. And you have some groups who have about the same amount of TV stations.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that in that process, you've had a lot of stuff that becomes standardized between the different TV stations, all under one corporate banner, and there's not a lot of individuality left. You used to have that,
Right.
And a lot of what you hear on radio now is voice tracked because it's pre-prepared somewhere else and sent in by internet to the individual station.
Mm-hmm.
It's just no personality.
Right.
You
A lot of the iHeartRadio hosts are actually done that way. They're not actually sitting in that little booth.
Right. And that's why on Thursday afternoons, I am doing my part to maintain live radio, because this show that I do, you wouldn't want to voice track it. So
that's fine. So social media, just in general, your thoughts. What do you think?
sometimes I think it's been a positive for the cause of communications, and then sometimes I wonder, how did I get in the cesspool?
Right. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there.
Yeah.
I ask a lot of people that question because it's just, younger kids today wouldn't have a clue. I mean, we didn't even have cell phones, much less social media. But they just are, to have no idea that you did not know what everybody was doing, and nor do I need to know every time you go to get a cup of coffee.
That's right.
That's not necessary.
I mean, I'm the kid who came from the street that had a 4-party line.
Yes. My grandmother, I can remember picking up the phone and there'd be other people on the phone talking, and my grandma would catch me listening. She'd go, "Angela, hang up the phone." I was just being nosy.
Yeah, we want to know what's happening in the neighborhood. But now you don't have to eavesdrop because it's all out there.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I'm so glad we didn't have that when I was growing up. Thank you.
Now, I have to admit, I'm primarily, a Facebook user. I kind of got away from Twitter because it got crazy. No, I have always said that I'm not going to touch that stuff because
I haven't either. Not yet, anyway. Not until I'm like,
I'm not so. I think it comes from some unknown place, and I said, the less I know, the better.
Right. Sometimes that's the case. So, tell me your biggest live blunder. What's or maybe a couple.
Okay. Oh, well, there will be a few. Hold on. Okay.
Because that's the difference in going live and recording. You can't edit it.
No, live is forever. And, had some of this stuff been on the internet, I would still be haunted to this day. One of them being one day in March 1981 at WJRI in Illinois, where I had just taken over for my shift, which ran 3 to 7 p.m. And, back in the day, you wanted to be sure you had all your tape cartridges ready to go, and you also had something on the turntable. Well, I discovered that I did not have something on the turntable when the bulletin broke that somebody had just tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan.
Oh.
And so, I'm trying to reach back into the record box to get something on the turntable to roll out of this bulletin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And what would it be that I had selected, inadvertently without even...
Good to ask.
It was a song by Phil Collins and Earth, Wind, and Fire called "I Missed Again."
No. So not only did we have dead air, then we had
Probably
I Missed Again.
Totally inappropriate.
Right. I do remember at the station when it was always dead air. It's like,
Yeah. I do. I remember also causing some of it because I'd be doing engineering during your shift. And, not intentionally trying to destroy anything, but more or less just trying to get something done. And I said, no, that won't work.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty big blunder there. But you lived, and like you said, thank God we didn't have recordings and social media back then for it to still be passing around.
Leslie, I think the next one was in probably 2000 when, we were running the CBS show Big Brother, and I was on master control that night. Right. And it had 2 local commercial breaks in it. And, we would always get information from the network as to how long the break times were. So the second break in the show, which was live, originating from Los Angeles, the program log said that it was going to be 1:34. Well, CBS changed their mind, but somehow word didn't get to us because they shortened the break to 1:04.
Oh dear.
And in that 30 seconds that we were not with network, they announced the winner of the competition.
Oh.
Yes. I said, well, I followed my program log. I said, but it got written up in the Raleigh News Observer about how they missed the 30 seconds where the winner was named. I said, well, I guess I'm in the Hall of Shame now.
Well, that didn't sound like it was totally your fault, for sure.
No, I won't take a total rap on that one.
Right.
Those are probably my 2 greatest hits right there.
So now you're down in Horry County at the beach, Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach.
North Myrtle.
Yeah.
We like to think that this is the better side of town.
I don't tend to disagree.
Where we got Fat Harold's and Ducks and Deckers and the Galleon,
Snookies, and let's see what else down that way.
And we got all that stuff.
So
Captain Archie's.
Oh yes, Captain Archie's. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Live every Thursday, as the professor of beach music, and
bestowed upon me by my friend and brother Mike Worley, formerly of 94.9 The Surf.
Right. So Thursdays on Beach Waves, beachwaves.com. You'll also have an app. What I don't remember the times. I know it's afternoon.
Noon to 3.
There you go. All right.
That's beachwavesradio.com, or you can get our app, which is on the App Store.
Yeah.
And
listen to your professor. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks like you got work with a great group of people. I know that y'all are all doing it individually, but do y'all ever get together?
We probably will this year at the Carolina Beach Music Awards. Last year, we all got together out in the parking lot of the Alabama Theater and spent about 3 hours before showtime at 3 p.m. And, we were able to just get a bunch of good interviews. I'd see somebody and say, hey, come over here. Actually, I think it got down to being a competition because I was trying to get interviews before Surf got them.
Yeah, right. I can understand that. That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, Harold, thank you, or the professor, thank you so much, as I should say. This has been great. I have been excited about this for a while, and I'm finally glad that we caught up and were able to get together.
I'm already planning the sequel, even as we speak.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again, and I hope to see you in a couple of weeks when I'm down your way.
Well, that would be great. I hope so.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking South Carolina podcast. Why not check out our website at talkingsouthcarolina.com and follow us on social media. You can subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and on your favorite podcast apps. For information about being a sponsor on the show and on the website, contact us at area code 803-386-9885 or email us at angela@talkingsouthcarolina.com. This episode has been brought to you by the friendly folks at Giraffe Marketing. Find out more at giraffemarketingllc.com.
I'm gonna be the best version of me. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, roar like a lion, and I ain't even trying. No, 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 no. And I can say I'll be blown away, but the change you see,